So today we're reviewing
Thor, Love and Thunder.
We just got back from watching Thor, Love and Thunder. We did see this with a secret special guest that doesn't want to reveal his
Question
face.
mark.
We're going to give him his score later. But Jake, what were your initial thoughts of Thor, Love and Thunder?
In my opinion, it's almost I walked out of the theater with some mixed views and thoughts on the movie. There was definitely things that I liked a lot. There were some things that I didn't like very much, and there were some times where I just kind of was right in the middle of things. And I would just say overall, it was an okay movie. It was a good MCU movie, but nowhere near the top tier MCU movies in my opinion. But also not at like the bottom either. So I'd say it's towards the lower half, but right there, right around the middle. It's a solid. It's an okay movie.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I'm obviously a big Marvel fan. You've seen all our movies, reviews, and all the memorabilia we have. I was very disappointed with this movie. The more I think about it, the more disappointed I was. There's some stuff to like in the movie. There's some very false advertising for this movie that I want to say because that's just bull crap. I was disappointed, but we're just gonna be non-spoiler. Why don't we get into our positives first? Because there were positives with the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the positives for me was aspects of the villain character that you see in the trailers. I thought they did some cool shots with him and some of his entrances and like leaving certain areas, and obviously the cast. I would say some of the cast did a really great job, and just to point him out, obviously Chris Hemsworth, one of our favorite actors. I think he did pretty good. He's always super funny whenever he's on screen. Like, I enjoy him being on screen. I think he's super funny. So everything he did, I thought he did it as well as he could. He couldn't really help the storyline and some of the aspects that went on in the movie, but when he was on screen, I was enjoying what was going on. And I also like some of the action. I don't think I'll say that for my negatives, but some of the action was pretty cool. The music was pretty good at times.
I'm kind of struggling to find positives too, because yeah, the villain was interesting. He had a cool design, and he was interesting to say the least. There was some good action in here, not as much as I thought. The volume was quiet in our theater, so it's really not the movie's fault, I guess. The visuals were good. I mean, they're usually always good Marvel movies. There's a few exceptions where they're not that good. And the main characters were interesting, but yeah, I'm really struggling to find positives, honestly, and that's not a good sign. But why don't we go to our negatives, because I definitely have more negatives than positives, and the more I think about it, the lower this score is going to be for this movie. I already said I was disappointed. There's stuff to like.
Yeah.
Like the main characters you see, like in these pop figures, there's some interesting scenes, there's interesting storylines throughout. But why don't we get into our negatives? Because the negatives are much more prevalent to me than the positives.
Yeah, right, I'd say negatives for me are the tone of the movie. There was probably way too much comedy, in my opinion. It's fine. There's a lot of comedy if it all lands, but there was just times where the movie just didn't really know what it wanted to be, and it's hard to get serious when there's certain aspects. Like, there's scenes that could have been perfect if they would have done it correctly, but like the third act, in my opinion, is hard to get behind due to certain storyline decisions and just character decisions, and it really just did not have the same impact that. I mean, I'm looking at a poster right in front of me, Thor Ragnarok, and that one was a great film all the way around, but that final act, you knew was the final act, and it was also about Thor, which is the name of the movie, and that's what you expect to see at the end of the movies. You want to see the lead character have like some kind of an arc and an awesome scene at the end.
It's called a Thor movie.
There's just a lot of characters thrown into this movie that, in my opinion, did not really need to be there, or they could have been there, but just in a different capacity. And I would also say, like I said, the audio was bad, but that's really the theater's fault.
Yeah.
And one more negative that I could say is some of the acting, in my opinion, not some of the acting, just a couple characters. I couldn't buy their characters, and I didn't think it was earned to have certain things happening on screen. And because of that, it took me out of certain scenes. And overall, the storyline itself just there was just there's things I'm questioning leaving the theater, wondering why this happened or this. I just think there could have been a better film put together with the same characters, just a different storyline and different goals. So
yeah, there's a lot of negatives I have with this movie. This movie is called Thor, and when we say Thor, it's this guy right here. And people were saying before, you see in the trailer that there's a lady Thor, and nothing against the actress in particular. I just didn't think she was that good in the original Thor. But it definitely goes off this direction where it's not really about Thor. He has some cool scenes, but there's just a lot of times where it detracts and you don't see the great scenes and great things about Thor that you see in Thor Ragnarok. But there's a lot of points in this movie where there is too much comedy. Some of it works, but there's definitely too much. And a lot of the times I just am trying to think, like, what is even happening in this movie right now? Like, where are we going? Yeah. There's no clear direction. And it's just like, there's certain points where I'm like, what is happening and what is the goal? Yeah. Like, what are we doing here right now? And there's a lot of that. I just think, once again, the main character gets overshadowed and it's not focused on him enough. And there's just too much random, insane stuff that happens. And there's not just one clear-cut thing where there's a certain villain and there's a certain objective. It's just like all over the place. Yeah. And it's really messy, and that's just the main negatives I can think of. Yeah, I
mean, I would say I was kind of bored at times in the film, just because
there were slow parts.
I don't want to say bored. Like, I just think there was times I was just like, I don't know,
something needs to happen.
Not also, you can cut this out if you want, but we're at a point now where these movies, especially MCU movies and just movies in general, for the most part, they're like focusing on having certain things happen and for certain people to be in certain roles. Not because it's better for the story or making a good movie. It's just to just say, oh, we've covered this person, we've covered this line, we said these two people are doing this, and stuff that does not even need to be talked about. But I'm just saying, like, there's things that are, once again, in this movie, like, they're like, oh, we check this category off, we check this category off, and like there's a scene between Thor and Jane where they're like, it was actually a pretty interesting scene, but then they cut back and forth between them and Korg and Valkyrie, just talking about just really ridiculous things that don't even, like, why is this even being, like, this conversation could have taken place, but off screen. Doesn't need to be shown on screen. And it just took me out completely for a second. And I just think it's hindering movies because we're too worried, as far as Hollywood is, of just addressing so many things.
Making good stories.
And just like, yeah. And they're worrying about making everybody happy when really it's turning out to be worse and worse films in the MCU. Because ever since Endgame,
damaging the plot,
and I guess No Way Home, ever since then, the movies have just not been. I like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but I really worry about what they're going to keep doing in the future with movies, because I don't think we're really worried about making good movies anymore. We're just worried about pleasing everybody and just it's
checking boxes
and when you do that, it turns out to be a very just thrown together sloppy fest of a movie that was not that fun to watch compared to the ones that were like expecting. I expected Thor Ragnarok with a character like Chris Hemsworth on screen as Thor, and there's, like I said, these characters could be good characters, but they're not doing it correctly, and I think that just really took me out of the film at times.
I think it's very evident that certain movies that are not focused on the story and focused on having these different angles with different characters, there's so much forced in, just shoehorned stuff that just makes no sense. And then it's like almost the movie forgets, like, oh wait, the main plot doesn't make any sense because we're too busy trying to score these points here. Yeah. When going into spoilers, there's just stuff in this movie that absolutely makes no sense. I mean, I almost like facepalmed, like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's like the movie maybe should have focused on making the main plot make sense instead of like trying to score all these points like we were talking about. There's some stuff to like about this movie, but it's very evident that these certain agenda-driven things are being forced in at the expense of the plot and of the movie. Unfortunately, when a female Thor could have maybe worked to mix it up a little bit, to have Jane become Thor, and it could have worked. And there's certain scenes where the powers were cool, but even at that point, this stuff doesn't make any sense. And I don't want to spoil it. Why don't we go into our final thoughts and score, because since we've seen the movie, I feel like my score just keeps dropping. Yeah. So if we waited any longer, it might be even lower. But you want to give your final thoughts and score?
Yeah, I mean, final thoughts, like I said, I walked out of the theater enjoying, because obviously, like I said, Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth are my two favorite actors in all of Hollywood and all of movies. And the fact that they're even on screen for 1 second in the movie is going to be a positive for me. And I mean, you saw the trailer.
Don't
and
think
it's
you're
also
going to see Guardians
Thor.
of this movie, though.
Yeah, definitely don't go into expecting to see a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy, or else you might be disappointed like I was.
Really
like
false advertising.
But I think I walked out of it just disappointed at a lot of things, but then there was still things that you could enjoy from it. And overall, I think it was a slightly above average movie. Like I said, my average number is 5 out of 10. But just like Kenny said, there's just a lot that really leaves you scratching your head, wondering why this happened or why this happened, and just once again feeling more disappointed that the top priority of this movie was not to make a good movie. It was to, like you said, hit agendas and score points, and then the movie itself was down here, and that should be the opposite. Like, it needs to be, if all that stuff works, then that's great, but it needs to make a good movie.
It needs to make sense.
Yeah, so I think overall, I would be lying if I said that this was a 7, and honestly, even thinking about it, I would be lying if I said it was a 6, but it's shot well, there's great action, like as far as like the CGI goes, and you can't ignore any of that, and there were some funny scenes. Yeah. So I think I actually might go ahead and give it a, for now I'm going to give it a 5.5, but it could go to a 6 if I see it again.
Just give it a score, that's fine.
That's why I can't be easy on films. Like, I need to hold my standards higher.
Yeah,
it
would do no justice to Ragnarok.
I'm going to go to 5.5.
Yeah. See, now the thing is, if I gave this an 8 or 9, it would do no justice to Ragnarok, which I think is the best Thor movie.
Yeah.
I mean, just leaps and bounds above this movie. I mean, I kept thinking about it. Thor Ragnarok is such a good movie, and this movie, and as far as my grading scale goes, it goes like grades. And I was about to give this a 7, but I'd like to think this movie passed, at least, got a passing grade. I think I'm probably going to give it a 6 out of 10 because there's some stuff to like. I mean, how can you not like Thor? Chris Hemsworth is Thor. Right. And, I mean, Valkyrie was a great character in Ragnarok, got a great character coming back there. Korg was a great character. And even though this movie really didn't help them out too much, and then the Guardians are in it, I mean, how could you mess that up? And then the villain's really interesting. There's just so many issues I have with this movie, and they didn't focus on making a good story with a clear-cut ending and with good fights and good scenes in a first, third, second, third act. This did not focus on that stuff at all, and they really needed to. And I think a 6 out of 10 is pretty accurate. I did say I was going to call our guest star, but we're just going to give the score right now. He gave it an 8.2 out of 10. Very specific score. And this is his picture right here. It's you can't see who it is. Maybe he'll make a guest appearance on the channel someday. Yeah. But he gave it 8.2, and he said he liked it.
He did say there was a little too much comedy. If he said he would have toned that back, it could have jumped a lot further in his score.
Yeah, he said there was a little too much comedy, but he said it was good, and he said he likes Spider-Man and Doctor Strange better.
Yeah, but that was our non-spoiler review of Thor: Love and Thunder. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Kenny gave it a 6 out of 10. And the mystery reviewer gave it a 8.2 out of 10. So let us know in the comments what you thought about it. And what are you most excited for in the MCU going forward? So, yep. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.